Thucydides is saying that the real cause of the Trojan War is not what Homer says it is. It has nothing to do with Helen of Troy. Thucydides is saying instead that the Trojan War was merely the result of the earliest of the Greeks, who had only slowly begun to even speak the same language, becoming better seafarers. Now think about what that means. Presumably, becoming more experienced at seafaring means that you are getting better at navigating the sea and, presumably, improving the kind of ships that you use in that navigation. Becoming better at seafaring means that you are becoming better at techne. And it's exactly that Thucydides says is the true source of the Trojan War. And to be the true source of the Trojan War means to be the true source of the greatness that is characteristic and defines Greekness. And so what Thucydides is telling us here is that the origin of Greekness, the origin of Greek greatness, all that distinguishes them from the barbarians is improvement with techne, what we would think of as technological innovation. It is not a cuckolded Menelaus, which is to say a Helen seduced by Paris. But what ends up being most amazing about this is that there's every bit as much eros, or this longing, in Thucydides' account as there was eros in Homer. The difference, though, is going to be that in Thucydides, the greater eros, the more definitive eros in the soul of man is that which is writ large across the entire people. And later in the text, he's going to famously say in his own name that Athens had an eros as a people for Sicily that ultimately ruins them. But we're going to find out more about this shortly, because Thucydides is not going to leave it at just that. But just think of the enormity of everything that's in that third paragraph. People often draw comparisons and say that Homer is the Bible for the Greeks. And if that's the case, and there is a good argument to be made that was the case, Thucydides claims to be debunking all of that. But let's continue into the fourth paragraph now. Because notice how these paragraphs seem to follow one upon the other. They're absolutely written as a kind of ongoing argument. Each one follows the previous one. And this is simply to say that there is some kind of a structure to Thucydides' argument. And we can never lose sight of the fact of what that argument is. As we've seen, Thucydides' argument is that the possibility of wise statesmanship that results in greatness amid the ceaseless chance motions, stasis, of man in political community, such wisdom amid chance is in some way fundamentally defined by or characterized by the power of mind as it shows itself through techne, or what we would call technological development, advancement. And just to really bring out this great difference there is between, on the one hand, the individual eros that we see in Homer, and for instance, the eros for a loved one, or the eros for individual glory, versus what we're going to see in Thucydides, where that kind of individual eros becomes so fashionable that it gets writ large across the entirety of a people. And so we can genuinely speak of political eros, precisely because that distinction, in other words, individual eros versus political eros, is what distinguishes Homer from Thucydides. Let me just simply read that passage